Today, I will be showing photos of rosemaling done by 15 gold medalists from 1969 to 1980. All have passed on, but there are a few still alive that I have not shown. I never met any of them, but I wish I had. The first national Norwegian-American folk art exhibition at Vesterheim was in 1967, and the director, Marion Nelson, invited rosemalers across the U.S. to participate. By 1969, 3 rosemalers who entered the exhibition had achieved a gold medal. One of these was Agnes Rykken, a resident of Bellingham, Washington. Agnes had never been to Decorah, never taken a class there or in Norway, but nevertheless became one of the first Medal of Honor gold laureates in Vesterheim history. How did she achieve this distinction at a time when there was little information about rosemaling available? Luckily, in Vesterheim's March 2021 online newsletter, they republished an article entitled, "Welcome, I am Agnes Rykken," which is in an interview by Dean Madden from about 1980. In it, she says, "When I was 8 years old, an aunt brought me a small chest from Norway that I loved and treasured. Later in her life, she lived near Peter Hunt, the master of American peasant painting in Massachusetts, and took classes from him. There she learned to paint, not with artist oils, but with oil paint straight from a can, and was the best pupil he had ever had," he said. Later, she did use artist oil paints. After World War II, her friend Mary Horn corresponded with Knut Hovden in Norway. He sent many designs and rose-mold items in exchange for goods that were in short supply in Norway at that time. Perhaps these were the famous folios, 5 of old Rogaland style and more on telemark style that Knut published after World War II. She traveled to Norway once in 1955. But living in Washington State, where there are many people of Norwegian heritage, she also saw many examples of rosemaling. She produced a large body of work in her life, and Vesterheim has 2 pieces of hers. So this horsehead Tina won a blue ribbon in 1968. She saw the little deer running on an ale cup on her visit to Norway. It is a simple but effective design, and I love the cross-hatching, which unifies all the elements. Next. Here is the top of the Tina. But what style is it? Perhaps some telemark, Rogaland influences with a little Peter Hunt? Whatever, it is a treasure. Next. This Stav Construction Ambar won a red ribbon in 1969. It is subtly antiqued and has a beautiful flowing design, which could be Rogaland. Next. The next early gold medalist in 1969 is Ethel Kvalheim, the grand lady of early rosemalers. By all accounts, she was a kind, delightful person who charmed everyone she met. There is a classroom named after her at Vesterheim. Ethel's parents spoke Norwegian and followed many Norwegian traditions. She became interested in painting through a neighbor, Per Lisny, who painted in the Oos style in the 1930s. Living in Stoughton, Wisconsin, a Norwegian immigrant center exposed her to rosemaling styles. She did not like teaching, but created many designs of her work. These photos show her knowledge of rosemaling and her mastery of it. This first photo is a beautiful trunk in telemark style from 1973. has a blue background and a limited palette in blue, yellow, rust, and green. So next, this is the top of the trunk and is one big wonderful design. This is a master rosemaling at work. So I'll just look at it for a little bit. It really is very, very nice. Wow. Okay, next. This photo shows the delightful inside of the trunk done in monochromatic tones. These scrolls across the top are all connected by two cross-hatched areas, giving a light, airy effect. Very nice. Next. This Oos-style box was painted in 1951. Was it inspired by Per Lisny or an early tourist box from Norway? It shows colorful flower groups and nice line work in the Oos style. Next, here's the top and the inside with greetings from Stoughton, a date and a signature, and a graceful spray of flowers on the inside lid. This is, very similar to these boxes that came across from Norway, tourists brought. Next. This is the interior of a heavy bowl painted in Hollandal style in 1971. It is described as antiqued in red and green on gold, although I can't quite see the antique. It must be fairly subtle. The center medallion in Hollandal style, then two flowing bands and a simple top edge motif are, remarkably effective. Next. Here is the outside band with a saying translated as, "Tell me a story and sing me a song, and I will refill your bowl once more." Very nice lettering. Ethel painted into her mid-90s and spoke about the years of rosemaling as the best years of her life. Next. The third rosemaler to achieve a gold medal in 1969 was Violet Christophersen. She writes, this is interesting, in the early 1950s, there appeared to be a growing demand for a new art called rosemaling, which no one knew anything about. Instructors were at a premium and none were available to teach it at our local Marinette Vocational School. Finally, the director asked if I would be willing to teach. I asked, "Rosemaling, what's that?" He said, "I don't know. I think it's hammering on metal." Hammering on metal. I declined. But that summer, she found Dagny Shee in Milwaukee, as an early rosemaler, I think, who explained what rosemaling was. Then, following an extensive correspondence with relatives in Oslo, resulting in many helpful materials coming direct from Norway, Thus began her exciting career in rosemaling. So Violet painted this small trunk in telemark style in 1968, winning a red ribbon. I think she might have been inspired by a trunk in Vesterheim's collection by Hans Glittenberg. I don't know if they have that picture of that. That's it. Well, can't quite see it, but I have also seen other Hans Glittenberg's work, and I think it looks quite a bit like it. So let's go back to the trunk. So this is a frontal view. Oh, maybe go on to the next one. This is a frontal view with two medallions and a design painted under the lid. Let's go on to the next one. This view shows the back with intricate line work. I do wonder why the red bands are not continued across the top. What prompted that decision? But when you're painting or when you're designing something, you have to make a lot of decisions. And so she must have had a reason. But she did not continue those bands. So the last is the lid top with kind of symmetrical scrolls and remarkably interesting, beautiful central flowers. So it's got a lot of line work in those flowers, and the color is so bright. It's just quite different from what we might paint now. But she was one of those 3 early rosemalers. So my next gold medalist is Bath, who was awarded her gold medal in 1970. She is a very well-known early painter who, after first painting in Telemark and Hollandal styles, created a new style, American Roseland. She taught for many years and wrote numerous books on American Roseland, which adapted that old Roseland into a round form. However, these 2 photos actually are not American Roseland. This one here, this Hollandal trunk is from 1969 and is painted in muted colors. I think we paint a little brighter now, but that was the style, to paint in muted colors, making things look more antique. Like many of these early trunks, it has great hardware. Here is the trunk top, showing many of the characteristics of Hollandal style with cross-hatching, tying elements together. Let's just have a look at it for a while. That big flower in the center, and then scrolls around it. So that's next one. So this low shallow bowl is in Telemark style, and the bright colors show up well against the light background. Telemark scrolls at this time tended to be fatter, allowing line work details to show inside the scrolls. The inscription on the let's see, where am I? Here we are. The inscription on the band is translated: "Give your strength and your deed where you nearest see the need. As a brook to the river shall flow." This was written by Bjornstjerne Bjornson, a Norwegian poet, writer. It's a lovely sentiment. This is very nice calligraphy, simple but elegant. The downstrokes are broad and the upstrokes delicate. The lettering is not cramped but flowing. That's very nice. Okay, next one. This bowl, Addie Piddlecow won her gold medal also in 1970. This large ale bowl is 16 inches in diameter, and the Hollandal design, using blue, yellow, white with black line work, shows up well against the red background. The saying is translated: "Fill the bowl so you will have enough, my dear friend. You find the beer if the barrel will run in the cellar." And interesting scroll work separates the saying. So next, here's the outside of the bowl with an unusual design, half in the light color and half in the darker bottom. I haven't really seen that before. It really ties them together very well. Okay, next. The next photo is a 3-panel wall decoration in Telemark and Rococo styles. It is certainly reminiscent of Sigmund Arseth, and I'm sure she took a class from him. This is the blue surround frames all the bright colors of the Telemark design in the 3 areas. It's very attractive. It says it's a wall hanging. Seems to me it might be in front of a fireplace, but I'm not sure. So next slide. And this is the panel closed up with a monochromatic design. Again, really, it looks like it was inspired by Sigmund Arseth's work. Very attractive. Next. And Barbara Hawes, a 1971 winner, also studied with Sigmund Arseth and said she owed it all to him. However, Barbara had an art background as she was a furniture decorator, an advertising artist, and taught many art classes. She became acquainted with Peter Hunt also and sold her pictures in his store in Cape Cod. This wood and canvas panel is painted in telemark style and has muted colors and larger scrolls on a dull orange background. Again, nowadays, we like it to be a little brighter, at least I do. But this just definitely influenced by Sigmund Arseth. Next. Surprise! This panel was painted by for a Vesterheim Christmas card competition in 1983 and shows her artistic talent. It is a Christmas fantasy of a Viking boat with Nisa rowing, a Christmas tree, presents, angels, doves, and a Norwegian flag. It's wonderful, isn't it? Next. Gita Malam, a 1972 medalist, states, in the early years, my inspiration came from rosemaling, done by Per Lisny, and studying the Rogaland prints by Knut Hovden. She then studied with many of the instructors from Norway and was fortunate to go on Vesterheim tours to Norway in 1970 and 1973. And I can relate to that because the two times I went on a Vesterheim tour, it was just wonderful. You know, I learned so much. Many of the early rosemalers learned in this manner, and they do so today. This plate received a red ribbon in 1968. I really like this soft color palette of greens, blues, and yellows on a blue background. I find it very restful. Again, fatter, wider scrolls. This version of the Norwegian table prayer is, in Jesus' name, we go to the table to eat and drink upon his word. Bless it to our use and to the glory. So we receive food in Jesus' name. Amen. Next. This next plate in 1978 has a similar color palette, but I think shows a progression in her painting. I think it's painted a little better than the first one. I mean, they each have their charm, but the same color palette, but these colors are brighter. And it also has another version of the table prayer. It's quite similar, but slightly different. Okay, next. So, Susan Luthane, who won her gold medal in 1973, was from Platteville, Wisconsin, and studied with another early Norwegian teacher at Vesterheim, Niels Ellensgaard. That was the beginning of our rosemaling journey. This teacher's children's bench shows good use of color and delicate scrolls, and I think I can see more of the influence of Niels' work here. I think he had more delicate scrolls. So that's what I think. I think she's a wonderful painter. Next, there's a side view of this little bench. It's on a lighter background again. Now, which grandchild received this bench, I wonder? I'm sure many would want it. Next, this stave bucket, again, it shows her delicate flowing scrolls, simple flower shapes, and good use of color on the red background. I really love this bucket. It just fills the space quite well, but still some negative space there. The color is so appropriate against the red background. Yeah, I love this piece. Next, here is the opposite view. of the same bucket with great line work and great flowing scrolls. I love this. Next. And I also really like the asymmetrical telemark design on the lid also. There's a lot to be learned from this. If you look at it, she's got outlines of leaves and wonderful line work on it. So yeah, she was a great painter. Next. In 1974, Ruth Wolfson earned her gold medal. This Hallingdal tray with its flowing design is very pleasing. The red central flower catches the eye, and the scrolls lead to 3 more at each side. It's always good to have uneven number of flowers on a piece, 3, 5, 7, whatever, 9. This plate, do I want to say something more? Also, the stroke work is very nice. Yeah, it's a very, very pleasing piece. Next. Now, this plate's a little dark, but it says that it's in a bold telemark style in primary colors against a dark green background. It just doesn't show up very well on the photo, but those are the 2 pieces that Vesterheim had. Next. Also in 1974, Pat Birch was awarded her gold medal. Early on, Pat studied with Violet Christophersen, then studied rosemaling with Arseth and Ellingsgaard at Vesterheim. She adopted their emphasis on authentic interpretations of the traditions of the painting done during the 17th and 18th centuries. Pat had a long career in teaching, authoring 6 books and numerous folios and patterns. She continued an Etsy business until very recently. Here are 2 examples of her work. The panel on the left is painted in a personal style with elements from old Rogaland. You know, maybe elements from Swedish painting also. I like that very much. I like the urn. I like the flowers coming out. Yeah, I like it. And on the right is a framed telemark panel. Again, muted colors, wide scrolls. This is very typical of her telemark work. Next. Trudy Sondrel Wasson, gold medalist in 1976, said Norwegian is her identity and enjoys all things Norwegian. Her first teacher was Niels Ellingsgaard, but Birgit Lund also influenced her greatly. She wrote 2 books on old-style Rogaland, one of which I own. It contains good information on the history of the style. This is an interesting plate using motifs from old Rogaland style. This plate is, wait a minute, we have to go back, I think. We should be on, I'm talking about Trudy Wasson, and this is Dorothy Peterson. Maybe I got them mixed up. Let's go back to that red plate. I'll start again with Dorothy Peterson. Okay, I skipped her. Okay, here we are. Sorry, folks. The 1975 gold medalist Dorothy Peterson is well known for her interest in Hallingdal style. And this is it. She published many design sets, many of which I own. She traveled to 10 different states to teach, judged rosemaling shows, and took 5 trips to Norway. I have heard she was a very strict teacher, but she was definitely very knowledgeable in the Hallingdal style. This plate from 1978 is a great example of her skill, with blue, yellow, white, and black leaves and line work on a Hallingdal red background. You know, it's very concise. It's really lovely. Next. This much darker plate, also from 1978 is in American Rogaland style. It's kind of, I had to kind of look at this. I'm not even sure it's Rogaland, but I think so. It's just a little bit different from what she usually painted. But, okay, next. Now we're on to Trudy Sondre-Wassen, a gold medalist in 1976. She said Norwegian is her identity and enjoys all things Norwegian. Her first teacher was Niels Ellensgaard, but Birgelat Lund, a famous teacher, Norwegian teacher, also influenced her greatly. She wrote 2 books on old style Rogaland, one of which I own. It contains good information on the history of this style. This is an interesting plate using motifs from old Rogaland style. And it is symmetrical, each side is the same. The colors are subtle, but very interesting. Tulips, leaves of teardrops coming off them, a star, flowers, nice scrolls, symmetrical scrolls. Very nice plate. Next. Let's see, here is an oval top table, also in Rogaland style. Of the 2 pieces, I prefer the previous one to this. Obviously, this is done by a very skillful painter. It doesn't thrill me as much as the previous one. Next. We are getting near the end of the 1970s when Gary Albrecht was awarded his gold medal in 1979. Gary concentrated on American-style Rogaland. He made a career of teaching and published 7 books on that style. Here is a plate from 1978. The intricate pattern is shaded. Each leaf or flower is shaded with up to 4 colors on each element. So again, this is not my favorite style, I will say, but you have to admire the skill in this. Very symmetrical. I like the central medallion very much. So that's Gary Albrecht. Next. And here is a sugar bin replica, also in Rogaland by Gary Albrecht. This is in Rogaland style, American Rogaland, probably. But, American Rogaland has elements of old style Rogaland. So this one has an urn in the middle and tulips coming out of it. The leaves with teardrops flopping over the ends. It's beautifully painted. So next. And here's the top of the sugar bin. Again, a lot of shading you can see in there, in these central, 4 central flowers. And he was a wonderful painter. His style doesn't thrill me, but, we all have our choices in these things. Here's the side of it. So he put a lot of painting into this very interesting box. He was very skillful. So next. Okay. I had to include the Olsen twins, Thelma and Elma, who were jointly awarded a gold medal in 1980. They were inspired, again, by Per Lisny and Knut Hovden. They studied under many other visiting Norwegian teachers, such as Sigmund Arseth, Knut Andersen, Ruth Nordbo, Birgelat Lund, Olaf Tveiten, Olav Fossel, Oscar Jetsa, and Alfhild Tangen. I wish I could have taken classes also from these early Norwegian teachers, but before my time, or I couldn't get there, probably. They taught at Elkhorn, Wisconsin for many years. The twins always enjoyed dressing alike and painting together. Both would paint on the same piece, and then they would enter it into Vesterheim. So that was interesting. They were knowledgeable, gracious, and had a sly sense of humor. I wish I had met them. This elegant plate has telemark scrolls and roses. It's interesting. It's a little unusual, isn't it? But it's very elegant. The next, this bentwood box from 1973 won a red ribbon that year. Expertly painted, lovely blue background, antique somewhat, and again that subtle palette of colors: blue, rust, green, white line work. Very nice. Next. Oh, here's the top. And here you can see what a wonderful, I can't quite imagine two people painting on this, but that's what they did. Did they say, you paint the flowers, I'll paint the leaves? Or exactly how did that work out? But that's what they did. Very, very attractive. Next. Okay, the last one of the 15 early rosemalers is Carol Dziak, awarded her gold medal in 1980. She studied with many American and Norwegian rosemalers. This is a jewelry box or a letter box in the shape of a dowry trunk. I think it's quite small, actually. It is painted in an interesting Hallingdal style, which is very graceful. So here's the front of it, and these big scrolls, blue Hallingdal flowers surrounding the latch. That's very clever, I thought. Next. Here is a view of the lid, showing more of this wonderful design. And this, you don't see something as well done as this. She must have thought quite a long time about this design. However, the green bands are very bright and don't match the scroll color, and this bothers me a little. I think the red base color has changed the color of the transparent green scrolls. So maybe that green was really more the same color as the bands, except when she painted it over a red background and changed the color, changed the hue. Next, here is the back of the box, which matches the front. So I think it's really a lovely little trunk, even though it has bright green bands. Okay, next. Then this is the side of the box, where the green color looks exactly right with the red scrolls. Okay, so this was my last of the 15 rosemalers. Later rosemalers ventured onto other rosemaling styles, but all built on the accomplishments of the earliest gold medalists and the earliest teachers. Thank you for studying these photos with me. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer them.
Absolutely.
Actually, I do want to say one more thing. When I was researching, I also, went into the later gold medalists too, because on your Vesterheim website, you have information about all the gold medalists, and many of the later ones, you don't have any examples from them. So I guess I would, myself included, I guess I would encourage any other rosemalers, gold medal rosemalers, to give some of their pieces to Vesterheim so that later painters can study them. So that's what I intend to do.
Yeah, well, we would love to feature and showcase and share a lot of pieces. And actually on the museum's virtual galleries, currently we just have historic Norwegian pieces. We are in the process of doing a photography project, and we're going into phase 2, which we will be moving into some more contemporary, if you will, rosemal pieces. So we don't have many of those up on our website because we don't have decent photos of them to share. So we're working to fix that.
Good.
There's a question in the chat that came in asking about if these are linseed and mineral oil colors.
I believe that many of the early I would say that almost all of these rosemalers would have painted in oil paints, and probably linseed oil. Now we've moved to walnut oil if you're an oil painter, or to acrylic if you're an acrylic painter. I'm still an oil painter. Once you've learned one style, it's hard to change. But definitely these early painters would have all been oil painters. And a lot of them, I don't think were very careful in how they kept their environment. Maybe would have their bottles of turpentine or mineral spirits open all the time and not good ventilation. So in the 80s, I think that changed. People realized the problems with using some of these materials and improve their habits.
Anne was just wondering if the painted surfaces are protected with anything to keep those colors so vibrant. So do you know what folks were doing in the past to maybe keep those colors?
Yes. When I started rosemaling, all rosemalers sweared by something called McCluskey's. This was the gold standard in varnishes. And then McCluskey's, maybe because it was toxic, I don't know, changed their varnish, and everyone hated it. So then there was a lot of talk about you mix half of one type of varnish, a shiny one and a flat one together. And so they all varnish them, I would say that. Today, well, rosemalers still varnish it, but definitely the emphasis is you do not want a shiny varnish. Either a dull varnish, maybe a light spraying with a dull varnish, or a satin varnish, one coat perhaps. But some rosemalers have decided not to varnish at all, because in the old days, these trunks were never varnished. They were just painted with oils on a background, and that was it. So varnishing is a relatively modern idea, and you do kind of wonder what will happen 100 years from now. How will that varnish hold up? Will it start crazing? Will it start separating? So yeah, I do varnish very lightly, and in those days they certainly varnished.